5 signs for a bad piano technique. How do you know that you have a bad technique? I'm today in the beautiful Elba. It's the island where Napoleon was sent to the exile. It's part of the trip with the MS Europa, and I'll explain to you today how you know that you have a bad piano technique and that you need to improve it. First of all, you will feel that you are super tired after difficult passages. I'm not talking about complicated pieces like Chopin's first 2 etudes, where it's quite normal that if you start practicing that you feel a little bit tired, that you get some sore muscles here. But I'm talking that you're really getting tired after you play the piano for 20-30 minutes with some challenges. And I've talked to many people over the last years, actually thousands, and I've heard that so many times that being tired is such a big problem. And the problem is that you don't know how to use your body in the most efficient way, how you can use tension and release so that you know when you tense your muscles at which passages and when you have to relax them. And the result is that you're getting tired very quickly. But even if your technique is getting better, pieces like the Chopin etudes won't be so difficult anymore. So it's always also a sign that tells you, at what point you are in your piano technique at the moment. Another thing is that if you play in a hall, people will not hear you properly, especially in the end of the hall, like in the last rows. It will be difficult to just understand your articulation. You often practice in your own practice studio, maybe at school or in some other little room, and you have the problem that then at some point, you just practice your dynamics for there and you don't have the strong fingers that you need for a bigger hall. So if you move then to a bigger hall or play for an audience or at a competition, you don't project anymore. The word personality comes from Italian personare, which means to shine through, to sound through actually. And that's from old times when people were wearing masks in the theater in ancient Greece and Latin, of course, in Rome. You had to sound through with your personality. And it's the same thing for playing the piano. You need to project with your sound if you want to reach the audience, if you want to really, bring across the emotions that are in the music. And if your technique is not solid, we'll struggle with that. It will be too soft all the time, and one simply cannot understand you're playing well, especially if people are for the end of the hall. Now, what does it mean to have a bad technique? What are the signs, in your hands, in your arms? Of course, tension is a very obvious one. We have talked about that before. But what you can also notice very often, probably even in your own playing, is that the first joints of your fingers are not stable when you're playing. So that means that, many passages when you're playing scales or when you play chords, especially in the second fingers, it's a very common thing, but even in the others, which is even worse, you'll see that the first joints are moving in like this. And in the beginning that might not seem like a problem because you can do everything. The problem only occurs after a long time, and then it's already very, very difficult to change that habit. It will take many weeks to do so. So you need to learn quite early in your playing to be stable with your first joints. Many teachers tell you that you have to have round fingers all the time or this or that. Forget about this. There are different ways of playing for different passages, but the first joint always needs to be stable. Even if you play with quite flat fingers, which is also needed sometimes, you need to be very stable with your first joints. I mean, how can you practice this? There are specific exercises that I teach in my piano mastery system to my mentees. So there are a few exercises that help you with that, but you also have to observe it in your daily practice if you want to change those little habits. And I can tell you from my own experience, those little habits seem like nothing, but they're really actually important for your overall improvement of your playing. Another symptom of a bad technique is that you move your elbows constantly. You need your elbows for specific passages, but if you do that all the time, it's usually a compensation for not enough movements in your wrist and not enough strength in your hands. Because then, if you cannot do things here in your hand, you have to compensate that with your elbows, with your arms. You might even tighten your shoulders, but the elbows are the first thing that are quite obvious. And again, it might not look like a problem, but if you move a few months or years down the road and you want to play fast scales, it's simply impossible to do that with too much elbow movement. You know, the same with your joints and your fingers. It might not seem like a problem, but if you have many chords in a row that need a lot of strength, you will fail with not stable first joints, you know. So if you see that your elbow is moving too much, you have to, again, strengthen your hands first of all. Also, the flexibility of the wrist is underrated among pianists. I'm not talking about up and down movement, but you know, sidewards movement will help you to phrase the music much better, and will also help you, you know, to use your body in the best possible way, especially the sideward movements, because the keyboard, you know, is not in a natural position, you know, and everything that is moving up and down is actually against the keyboard. So you need to use your hands the best possible way, and by using your wrists you can assist that. And yeah, the elbows are actually only good for very, very huge movements, but not for scales, not for arpeggios and these kinds of things. The fifth point that tells you that your piano technique is not so good is that you actually know what you want to express in music. You have a very clear imagination how the piece should sound like, what the emotions are that you want to transmit, and also you know how you want to phrase and how you want to express yourself with the sound. But for some reason it's simply not working and you don't know why. You're practicing for many, many hours, you're getting frustrated, and the reason for this is usually the technique. There are actually only a handful of problems in piano playing. One is the technique, one is the practicing strategy and the memorization, and the third one is the fear of performing in front of others. That's actually it. Of course, understanding the piece, you know, the language might be a fourth category, and obviously the mindset, so your own artistic understanding of yourself, of the piece, of the music itself, of the world. These are things that are super important, but the technique is one of them. And if you cannot express yourself but you know what you want to express, that's usually a sign that your technique is not strong enough. So if you recognize yourself in one of these 5 areas, yeah, not having a strong enough sound to project into a hall, getting tired after you're playing, having problems with your joints, having problems with your elbows, or simply not being able to express yourself, then what can you do? Yeah, first of all, as I've said, you need to strengthen your hands. Yeah, you have to learn how to use tension and release, and you also have to build your technique strategically, you know, with specific exercises for specific problems. And you also need someone to assist you with that, who has experience and who has already seen all of those problems. If you want to work with me together, you can apply for a free strategy lesson where we look exactly which of these 5 areas is the most critical for you and where you have the most potential for improvement. So sign up at aaronpilson.com/academy and we'll talk to each other very soon to find out if and how I can help you with your piano playing. Apart from that, thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. I will enjoy my day today in beautiful Elba, and we see each other again in the next video. Take care and goodbye.